Aemon Targaryen's life was marked from the start by ambition, rivalry, and tragedy, the hallmarks of a true dragon prince. As a son of King Viserys I and Alicent Hightower, he was born into a realm ruled by dragons and bound by deadly dynastic politics. His story is one of a young prince forged in the fires of family conflict and a fierce struggle for the Iron Throne. Aemond was a boy of striking features and sharp wit, but what truly set him apart was his bond with dragons, a symbol of his Targaryen blood and power. At a young age, Aemond was gifted the dragon Vhagar, the largest and most fearsome dragon of their time, inherited from his uncle Prince Daemon. This gift was a mark of great favor and a portent of his destiny. As George R. R. Martin writes in Fire and Blood, Vhagar was as vast and terrible as a mountain. Her wings dark as storm clouds, her roar a rolling thunder that shook the earth. Aemond's relationship with Vhagar was both a source of strength and a symbol of his ferocity. Riding Vhagar gave Aemond an unmatched advantage, allowing him to dominate battles from the skies. But the path to this bond was not without hardship. Aemond was only a child when he lost an eye in a savage fight with his half-brother, Lucerys Velaryon, a wound that would earn him the dreaded nickname, One-Eyed Prince, and harden his resolve for vengeance. The loss of his eye was not just a physical scar, but a mark of deep familial betrayal and bitter rivalry. The animosity between Aemond and Lucerys was a spark that would ignite the devastating Targaryen civil war known as the Dance of the Dragons. Martin captures this tension perfectly. The boy with one eye and the boy with the other would one day tear the realm apart. From early on, Aemond was seen as a fierce and unyielding figure, shaped by the bitter politics of King's Landing and the competing claims of his family. His mother, Alicent Hightower, was a staunch supporter of the Greens faction, which backed Viserys I's designated heir, her son Aegon II, over Rhaenyra, Viserys' daughter by his first wife. Aemond's loyalty to his family was absolute, even as it put him on a collision course with his half-sister Rhaenyra and her supporters, known as the Blacks. His upbringing was strict and demanding, instilling in him a sense of duty and an unforgiving will to win. Aemond learned early that power was seized through strength and fear, lessons that would drive him into the heart of the war to come. The prince's fearsome reputation grew as he matured, especially once he took to the skies atop Vhagar. Other dragon riders both admired and feared him, not only for his martial skill, but for the cold fire behind his sapphire eye. As one courtier noted, Aemond was a prince not merely of blood and fire, but of ice, his gaze as piercing as the blade he wielded. His presence on Vhagar was often enough to turn the tide of skirmishes and intimidate enemies. But beneath the fury and fire, Aemond's story was also one of loss and solitude. The war would demand great sacrifice, testing his strength, loyalty, and the very limits of his endurance. In the early days before the war erupted fully, the tension in King's Landing was thick. The dance of politics and power moves was a deadly game, with Aemond positioned as both a player and a weapon. His every move was watched by those hoping to either use him or destroy him. Despite his youth, Aemond demonstrated a ruthless streak that would define his role in the coming conflict. He was not content to be a mere pawn, but aimed to be a kingmaker, or a king himself. His bond with Vhagar was not just a symbol of his heritage, but the ultimate tool for asserting his claim and exacting revenge. The death of King Viserys I unleashed a devastating storm over the Seven Kingdoms, plunging the realm into civil war, the infamous Dance of the Dragons. The struggle for the Iron Throne would pit Targaryen against Targaryen, and amidst this chaos, Prince Aemond Targaryen emerged as one of the fiercest and most cunning warriors in the bloody conflict. Though still young, his loyalty to his family and his unyielding ambition would leave a permanent mark on Westeros history. When Viserys I died, the question of succession tore the realm apart. His chosen heir, Princess Rhaenyra, was the daughter of the king and the designated successor. Yet many lords refused to accept a woman ruling the Seven Kingdoms. Alicent Hightower and her faction backed her son, Aegon II, arguing that a male ruler was necessary for stability. The Greens and the Blacks, as the two factions came to be called, Both laid claim to the throne, fracturing not only the realm, but the Targaryen family itself. Prince Aemond, the second son of Alicent and King Viserys, was a passionate supporter of his brother Aegon II. Despite his youth, he quickly proved himself a fearsome warrior and dragon rider. Mounted on the ancient and terrifying dragon Vhagar, one of the last living dragons of the Targaryen line, Aemond was a symbol of the Green's might and resolve. His boldness in battle was unmatched, and his single-minded devotion to his cause made him a dangerous adversary. One of Aemond's most daring early acts was the bold seizure of Dragonstone, Rhaenyra's ancestral stronghold. Flying Vhagar through the walls in a lightning strike, Aemond took control of the island with stunning speed and brutality. George R. Martin writes, "With a thunderous roar, Vhagar tore through the stones of Dragonstone." And Aemond's claim was made clear. He would not allow the Blacks to hold such a prize. This seizure sent shockwaves through the realm, demonstrating Aemond's fearless nature and ability to strike at the heart of his enemies. But it was not only his boldness, but his calculated cruelty that made Aemond so feared. His rivalry with his half-brother Lucerys Velaryon, who flew the dragon Arax and supported Rhaenyra, was personal and bitter. Their enmity culminated in one of the most infamous battles of the dance, the deadly aerial duel over the God's Eye Lake. In a brutal clash high above the waters, Aemond confronted Lucerys, determined to end their feud once and for all. The chronicles recount, "Steel clashed against steel, wings beat the air in fury, and fire scorched the sky. At last Aemond's sword pierced true, and Lucerys fell to the waters below, lifeless. This act was a turning point." Lucerys' death shocked many, and inflamed the hatred between the Greens and Blacks, ensuring that neither side would relent. For Aemond, it was a ruthless but necessary step in his quest to secure the throne for his brother. His victory solidified his reputation as a deadly warrior and fearsome dragon rider, one who would not hesitate to shed blood to achieve his goals. Despite his ferocity, Aemond was also a shrewd strategist and political figure. He used fear and intimidation to control King's Landing and rally support for the Greens. His presence at the capital during Aegon II's coronation was a clear sign that the Greens intended to hold the city and the throne with an iron grip. Aemond's skill as a dragon rider was legendary. Vhagar was one of the oldest and most powerful dragons, and Aemond's bond with her was unique. The dragon responded fiercely to its rider's commands, making them nearly unstoppable in battle. The sight of the one-eyed prince soaring through the skies astride Vhagar became a nightmare for Rhaenyra and supporters. As a chronicler noted, Aemond and Vhagar were like a storm of death. His single eye gleamed with cruel intent, and his enemies would sooner flee than meet him in the air. One of the most critical battles showcasing Aemond's prowess was the battle above the God's Eye, facing a coalition of Blacks. Aemond fought relentlessly, even when wounded and outnumbered. His tenacity and command of Vhagar allowed the Greens to claim a hard-fought victory, proving that his ferocity was matched by his skill. Yet the Dance of the Dragons was not a war with winners. The losses on both sides were staggering, and the destruction wrought by dragonfire was catastrophic. Families and kingdoms were torn apart, and Aemond's fierce ambition was inseparable from the tragedy that unfolded. In this phase of the war, Aemond Targaryen emerged not just as a warrior, but as a symbol of the terrible cost of civil war. His bravery and ferocity were undeniable, but so too was the relentless hunger for power that consumed him and those around him. The Dance of the Dragons would forever remember him as the prince who dared to ride the ancient dragon Vhagar, the one-eyed scourge of his enemies. As the war dragged on, the brutality deepened, and Prince Aemond Targaryen's legend only grew darker. His relentless pursuit of victory and his fierce loyalty to King Aegon II made him one of the most feared figures on both land and sky. Yet, the very traits that brought him power also sowed the seeds of his downfall. The loss of his eye, a defining moment of his life, symbolized the price Aemond was willing to pay for power. The injury occurred early in the war during a confrontation with Prince Daemon Targaryen, Rhaenyra's husband and a ferocious dragon rider in his own right. The battle was brutal, and during the chaos, demon's dragon Caraxes struck Aemond's face, blinding him in one eye. Yet Aemond refused to retreat. He famously declared, "One eye is enough to see my enemies fall." His vow was not empty. Despite the impairment, Aemond's skill as a warrior did not wane. It sharpened. The loss of his eye became a symbol of his tenacity and ruthless determination. From that moment forward, he was known as Aemond One Eye, a nickname that struck fear into the hearts of his foes. Aemond's bond with Vhagar grew even stronger after his injury, as if the dragon understood the fire that burned in her rider's soul. Together, they became an almost unstoppable force of destruction. Vhagar was older than most dragons, but under Aemond's control, she flew with terrifying speed and power. As George R. Martin wrote, Vhagar's wings blotted out the sun as she and Aemond struck terror into the hearts of all who dared oppose the Greens. This deadly duo was instrumental in several key battles, and their presence shifted the tide in favor of the Greens. However, Aemond's ferocity was matched by his enemy's desperation. Rhaenyra's forces were determined to end the war, and both sides knew that a final, decisive battle was inevitable. The climax of Aemond's story unfolded during the Battle of the God's Eye, the very place where he had earlier slain his rival, Lucerys Velaryon. This battle became a titanic struggle between Aemond on Vhagar and Prince Daemon Targaryen on Caraxes, two of the greatest dragon riders in Westerosi history. The skies were filled with dragonfire and steel as the two men and their dragons fought with unmatched ferocity. The chroniclers recounted the encounter. The two dragons clashed like storms, their roars shaking the heavens. Swords flashed and fire rained upon the waters of the God's Eye. Neither rider yielded. Fate was cruel. In a tragic and fiery end, Aemond and Vhagar fell from the sky, slain by Daemon and Caraxes. The loss sent shockwaves through the war. The Greens had lost one of their mightiest champions, and the cost of the conflict was growing unbearable. Despite his death, Aemond's impact on the war was profound. His boldness, ruthlessness, and tactical genius had prolonged the war and forced the Blacks to fight harder and smarter. His actions directly influenced the course of the conflict and the eventual fall of the dragons. The Dance of the Dragons itself became a cautionary tale of pride and ambition. The war devastated the Targaryen line, with many dragons and riders perishing, and Aemond's death marked the beginning of the end for the dragons in Westeros. As one historian lamented, with each dragon that fell, so too did the hope of the Targaryen dynasty's invincibility. Aemond's legacy is complex. To some, he was a villain, a brutal prince who escalated a war that destroyed his own family. To others, he was a tragic hero, a warrior prince who fought fiercely for his brother's claim and his family's honor. His loss of an eye and his relentless pursuit of vengeance made him a symbol of the high cost of power struggles. In the end, Aemond Targaryen's story is one of fire and shadow. A prince who rode the oldest dragon, who bore scars both physical and emotional, and whose ambition shaped one of the darkest chapters in Westerosi history. The Dance of the Dragons left behind a world forever changed, and in its ashes, Aemonda's name endured, a testament to the terrible price of war and the fierce heart of the Dragon Prince.